So I met David when I interviewed for new builders on a home we were going to build here. So when we found this home, it needed a lot of work, and I knew that from what we had done before, so it was real important to me because David and I had a great relationship, and he was my guy. After meeting with 5 or 6 other builders, I knew he was my guy. Didn't know whether he'd be interested in a renovation or not, but this turned out to be essentially a custom build because we took every piece of this house apart. All the drywall was gone so we could spray foam it. Every frame, every piece of flooring, every piece of tile. There were rooms here, a half bath in what's now the kitchen, made no sense, so we moved it. We didn't change the exterior walls at all. Everything was internal, but every piece of this house needed to be touched. So it was essentially a new build, and I think that's where he got excited about it and saw what we were willing to do to make it a house where we want to live, not something we wanted to flip or just do a cheap kind of, okay, let's put some lipstick on it and sell it and make a couple bucks. This is where we're going to live. And he saw the materials we liked. He saw the kind of things that Lisa wanted, and I think there was kind of an agreement of minds that this would be a project that would fit into his custom side and very, very high end, and the level of detail he does is what originally sold us. And when he heard that's what we want to do here, I think that's what intrigued him to do this project with us.
David really helped us every step of the way. Like, he had amazing ideas. Thank goodness he talked us, because at first I really wanted to keep the flooring. That was literally the only thing I did like in this house was the floor, or at least I thought I did, but then David was like, you have dogs, this flooring's gonna scratch, it was too thin, it literally was the only thing that had character. So I'm so glad we listened to him, and then it was mismatched. So we would have put carpet here and there. So thank goodness we listened to him, and we did the same flooring throughout. And he had also amazing other ideas that were like, that we didn't even think of.
Yeah, I think the materials that we had in mind, there were things he suggested, there were combinations, there were, he does this for a living. So we've done a couple of projects. This one was definitely higher end than anything we've done before because this was going to be our home, right? So he understood that and walked us through, and to the level of, if you look at some of the detail on the trim, he had his guys build sample trim on one window so we could come see it and look at it and say, oh yeah, that is very, very custom, but that's the low country look, which I had to learn what the low country look is. I'm a mountain guy. But that's the level of detail he provided on a daily, really literally on a daily basis as we worked through the planning, the selections, and then the whole process. We were here the whole time. Most of the time this was being built, so I was here every day. He had a project supervisor here every day if he wasn't here. And the thing that initially drew me to him, we got along really well personally, but when I started calling these different groups, he picked up the phone. And the second call, he called me back in 3 or 4 minutes. And I've seen in her business, the communication is one of the greatest things. Like, this is a massive investment, okay? So you need to know what is happening today, who is coming tomorrow, and I knew the process enough to be probably a little annoying, but he worked me through that and walked me through, and his project supervisor was great. So I think that was kind of the initial thing, that he's a guy that you don't have to go through 7 layers of people to get to the guy who's the guy. He's going to give you a very direct answer when you ask him a question. If you don't agree with him, it's fine. He's not going to get offended. He's going to give you what you want, but he will always give you a very direct and honest answer.
One of the most important things to me is, like, I actually trusted him. I believed in what he said, and he delivered. And his subs, all the people he used, his supervisors, all the people were class acts. And for me, that you need to be able to trust, especially half the time we weren't even in the state when we were doing some of this renovation. So the trust level of him sending photos and the communication, and it's important to have that trust. Because if you don't have that trust, you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Or, you don't even know if they're doing anything. But everything he said, he delivered, and I thought we really did trust him.
I got to talking to all his subs. All his subs like this company a lot. And in construction, again, I know just enough to be dangerous. When your subs like you, those are the guys who show up. I've dealt and known with some subs who can't stand the general contractor, and that's bad for everyone. So to me, when I got, and we had already picked him, there was no turning back, but when I got on site and started chatting with the plumbers and the electricians and the framers and the drywallers and they all spoke very, very highly, both of David and the entire team. That meant a lot to me.
He has a very great reputation.
You know, for me, I think the ideal fit to work with Summerall Custom Construction is someone who knows generally what they want. David was real clear up front. I'm not a designer, I'm not an architect. You give me the plan, I can build whatever you want. Where he's great is giving opinions. Should I do this or this? What's the benefit of a vented versus a ventless fireplace? You know, things like that. But I think you have to have some idea of what you want. I think the quality level that you desire needs to be very, very high end. He builds a custom home. So if you just want something that's ready to go, I get to pick one of these 3 fixtures, one of these 3 floors, one of these 3 paint colors, probably not your guy. If you want something that's really custom for you and someone who's going to work through the whole process, even if you don't know what you want yet, he will get you there. I mean, his project supervisor, even down to the detail of the grout color we picked in each bathroom. He brought 100 samples and we laid them down, and he went from 100 to 50 to 20 to 5, and he's got a whole process for that. So I think the customization level and the attention to detail and the communication, everybody wants that, but I think, you know, that's the person who's going to work really well with David, and David will cater to exceptionally well.
My family's been coming down to the Low Country for probably 30 years. We've actually owned this lot for about 20 years. I know it took us a while to kind of pull the trigger on the whole thing. This area means a lot to us, so it took is sort of a fulfillment of a lot of dreams when we finally were able to start the construction process. We used a pretty well-known architect in this area, and then we went through a process to get to David. So we're, you know, thrilled, and this is going to be something that our family will use for, you know, a long time.
I'm enjoying this process along with David Summerall, who has been just a joy to work with. I mean, he's making our dreams come true, and he's made it easy and fun. And I'm going to really miss him when it's all over, because we've had such a great professional relationship. It's been a great process all along.
We evaluated proposals from a number of builders, interviewed all of them, and you know, we ended up with David.
We interviewed him over the telephone, and he was just so friendly and down to earth, and our conversation was just like talking to, you know, your brother. It just flowed. And we just knew, the minute we hung up the phone, we were like, oh, okay, he's the one we're going to go with, because we really just liked him. We could just tell.
The process from start to finish on the evaluation was probably about 3 months, because we had to first get the list of builders, put out the specification, RFP, get that back. The architects reviewed each of the proposals before we saw them, and then we looked at each of the proposals, and we set up interviews. So I want to say that we completed that around September, and then I negotiated the contracts with David. Probably took about 30 days, you know, legal review, all that kind of stuff. So we probably signed everything in November of last year, and broke ground in January. It was sort of like bing, bang, boom. Once we finally decided, it was pretty straightforward. And David was pretty straight up about how long it would take, what the timing was, because very often folks will say one thing to get the contract and then do another. He's been pretty sort of accurate along the way. It's every Friday we get those weekly updates. So we live outside of Dallas, we don't even live here. And we get pictures and a summary sheet of what's going on every week, and a contact person for questions. And for folks like us that are kind of in the details a little bit, it's nice to have all that. If there's any sort of issue, he just contacts me directly. He's very accessible. I've never had an issue with him either not calling me back or being accessible. In terms of the information we get every week, we get details on what's been accomplished very specifically, what's planning in the upcoming week. And if we are given photographs, it depends on the week. It's really specific to what work has been done. And then, you know, you have to physically be here for some stuff. So we work that out with him pretty regularly. So we've got periodic trips we have to kind of walk through it with him.
It's been a joy all along, and a lot of pleasant surprises just for things that are so basic, like the shower outside. You know, I thought, well, let's have it in the back, you know, and then he said, well, but the beach is right here. Would you consider maybe having it right here? And then that just made sense to come right off of the beach and have the shower there. And so you talk about, you know, pleasant surprises along the way, that just his experience had really helped me to kind of picture what really needs to be where.
He'll appeal to anybody that wants to build a home. And I think he's pretty straight, and he'll tell you if you can't do it, it doesn't make sense, he'll tell you. I think if you've got a vision for what you want, it's the type of thing where David can translate it into something that you can actually build. So I wouldn't say there's like an ideal customer, because that assumes there's kind of a niche for it, and I don't think that's really right in this case. I think he can build you whatever you want. Just have an idea of what the heck you're looking for, and I think he can help you navigate.
We're from Greenville. My family, I have a wife and 2 daughters. I think I started thinking about building a house on Fripp Island around 2000. As I was doing the research to find a builder locally, I interviewed about 7 different builders and trying to find exactly what I was needing and wanting in a builder. And that was flexibility and a good reputation. I met David. We became friends real quick. We worked together really well. Being in the construction industry myself, in the flooring and stair business, he let me do a lot of the designing for this house and let me put a lot of my own inputs. And that's not always normal with builders. A lot of builders try to get you to pick out what they want you to pick out. David's work staff is tremendous. His superintendents, his subs, they all were looking out for us. For a beach house, you definitely want a custom builder. You don't want a production builder that you come in the office, pick out 1, 2, or 3. You want somebody that gives you options. And I mean, there's times where I wasn't happy with something. I would talk to David and we would come to a resolution and it would get fixed. That meant a lot to me, that a builder would care for us enough to take these problems and just take care of them. Sometimes you call people and you get their answering machine and then you expect a phone call back and you might not get one for 3 or 4 days later. Well, with David, it's totally different. I would call and he would answer, and all of a sudden I was like, what? What's going on? I mean, why is he answering the phone so quick? So David was real responsive. I couldn't ask for a better builder as far as his response time. I started asking around to all the lumber yards and other trades how they felt about David, and I got high recommendations from everybody. Through the process, we almost wanted somebody young that could see new things that's coming up on in building, and we felt like he had the knowledge to introduce us to new stuff in the building trades, and we felt really comfortable about using him. I would build with David again. If I had an opportunity in the future to build in Beaufort or Fripp Island or anywhere else in this area, I would definitely choose David as my builder. No questions asked.